On the road after their 3-7 homestand, your Boston Red Sox opening up a weekend series at PNC Park against the Pittsburgh Pirates with Brian Bayo on the mound. No Rafael Devers in this one tonight. Sedane Rafaela also going to be at shortstop. First pitch coming up in just about 40 minutes. A couple of play-in games tonight. The final one in the East, Bulls, Heat, and Bulls guard Alex Caruso said he expects to play in this game against Miami. The winner of the game goes on to take on the Celtics in the first round of the playoffs. Game 1 Sunday afternoon at TD Garden. The Western play-in game tonight, it's New Orleans and Sacramento. Disgruntled 49ers wide receiver Brandon Ayuk today on Instagram throwing gasoline on the trade rumors. He said, we got 6 days, then it's fireworks. And the Boston Bruins going to the Stanley Cup Final. They open up their first-round series against the Maple Leafs tomorrow night at the Garden. But EA Sports running their playoff simulation today on NHL 24. And your Boston Bruins going to the Stanley Cup Final, where they lose in 7 games to Vancouver. Headlines are brought to you by Connell Roofing. Does your house need a new roof this spring? Don't wait. Call Massachusetts leader in roofing, Connell Roofing. Head to connellroofing.com, CONNELL roofing.com today and get your new roof this spring. I'm Jim Murray from Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Listen to it, laugh at it, get mad at it, agree with it, argue about it. It is Boston Sports. Boston Sports. And it is all we do. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Now,
you have dog crap in your system.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
They did nothing this offseason.
Brought to you by Bigelow Tea, Corona, Gravely Zero-Turn Lawnmowers, Jackson Lumber, Team Impact, Blue Moon Belgian White, and FindMassMoney.gov.
On 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Abreu would hit next if given a chance.
You can see when he goes more to that glove side, it gets a lot more cut to it. Let's see if he goes back outside here.
Clase went quick, and he blew him away. 97 miles an hour in ball game. 5-4 the final. The Guardians win it. They take the series 3-1. The Red Sox wind up going 3-7 on the homestand. So an about face after that West Coast swing. And now we're back to 500 heading on the road.
Yeah, that's a tough one right there. They got themselves back into it. Just fell short there in the end. But again, 10 strikeouts on the day. Got to cut those down.
Strikeouts and errors. The Red Sox made 2 more. They've made 20 on the year. That is number 1 in baseball.
So there you go. Strikeouts and errors. Good combination for the Red Sox. That's where they are. And this is where we begin tonight on the Baseball Hour. 617-779-0985 will take you up until 7 o'clock right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Tyler Milliken in for Roundtable Friday. Matt McCarthy had another commitment this week, so it'll be just Tyler and myself. But this is where I want to start, Tyler. Okay? 20 games in. We all know it's a big picture sport. So it's all about the long view and how's it going to be at the end and what have you. And, hard to make any snap judgments in a short period of time. But we do have a daily show, as we like to say. And so at some point, we're going to look at the Red Sox and say, what do we have here? So let me just give you the brief summation, because honestly, it's pretty clean. If you were to take a 20-game sample at any point during the season, this would be a good one to take, and I'll tell you why. Not because it's the first 20 games. The Red Sox have won 10 and lost 10. They've played 10 at home and 10 on the road. They went 7-3 on the road to start the year. They came home and went 3-7. So now I haven't gone so far as to delve into 5, did you play 10 lefty starters and 10 righty starters or faced, and it's not true. They faced much less left-handed pitching than right-handed, but you get the idea. So let me ask you, point blank, what do we got here? In other words, is 10-10 a fair representation of what they are? Is 10-10 not fair because they played a soft schedule? Is 10-10 not fair because they're better than that? And if you look at some of the close games they've lost, they clearly could have won more. They lost an extra inning game in Seattle. They lost a 1-0 game in Seattle. They lost a 2-1 game to the Angels. They lost in extra innings to the Orioles. They lost in extra innings to Cleveland. And then yesterday they lost 5-4. So they've really been in pretty much every game, right? So what are they?
I hate the idea when you talk about the Red Sox and you start saying these are games they should have won or they, if the defense played better. We did that all last year, did we not? With Kike Hernandez, how many times did we sit there and say if they had a real shortstop, it would be different? In all reality, when it's been the same story for 2 seasons in a row, it's who you are. This is what the team is made out of. This is the roster construction they've chose to go with. But when I sit there and I see a team that leads baseball in errors, unearned runs, and caught stealing / pickoff attempts, that means you're a stupid baseball team. It means you're a team that lacks fundamentals and IQ, something Alex Cora has preached for years at this point, over and over and over again. Something else he's preached, being better at home. Guess what? You were the same embarrassing team you've been at home for this year and last year. So I look at the Red Sox at 10-10 and I say, maybe you've even been a little bit lucky so far with how good the starting rotation has been. Because as much as I believe in Andrew Bailey, do I think they're going to be the number 1 rotation in baseball all year long? I don't. Guys are going to get hurt. You have 3 arms in there that have never pitched a full season before. And with the state of the lineup, Rafael Devers, not knowing what he's going to be, I can't sit here and tell you they're going to be better than the team that is, bottom 10 in batting average right now, bottom 10 in OBP. And fortunately, they've hit a lot of home runs that have allowed them to be kind of right in the middle of baseball in terms of runs scored. But at 10-10, I think maybe things are just about what they have been or even been a little bit more lucky, because with defense this bad, it doesn't matter. If you can't handle routine grounders on a regular basis, if you can't avoid the same mental errors over and over again, you're going to be a bad baseball team and one I think's below 500.
Okay, so who do you blame for the stupid baseball? And let me just say quickly that I have callers all the time, both on Felger and Maz and on the Baseball Hour, who call and say this is Cora's responsibility. The manager's got to teach the fundamentals. So tell me, who do you blame for the bad baseball?
I think at this point, you have to kind of look at Alex Cora. Someone has to take the blame when it's a multi-year problem.
I don't, but go ahead.
Yeah, I think when it's a multi-year problem, and you can blame stupidity or whatever it may be, whether it's Wilyer Abreu continuing to boot balls, whether it's, guys getting picked off on the bases somewhat regularly. I think I just look at some of those things and it becomes the identity of your baseball club. If you can't erase that on a year-to-year basis, and listen, some of it goes to the front office. I'm talking David Hamilton. Have you ever seen a shortstop crow hop 3 times to get the ball to first base?
Ones with bad arms.
It's incredible. I've never seen it that bad before, so some of that blame is on the front office. But ultimately, if you can't avoid these errors on a year-to-year basis, or at least limit them when they start to pop up, I think that's going to fall on the manager, and the blame is going to go that route, especially when you're talking all offseason again and again about it being better.
Okay, so here's what I would say to fans who want to blame the manager. And I'm not telling you the manager's exempt. The manager's not exempt. At the end of the day, the manager's at least partially responsible for the product on the field, if not wholly responsible. I mean, it's his job to get to oversee what is allegedly a professional outfit, which I get. So has Alex Cora contributed to some of the problems here over the last few years? Yes, of course. I think the team has lost focus at the trade deadline. Cora's frustrations with the front office and management, particularly with Chaim Bloom, got in the way. I think the players were able to lose focus because Cora lost focus. And so the manager didn't exactly set a standard there. Now, do I blame him for what they are? No. Here's why. Alex Cora's going to teach David Hamilton that he has to step on second base when he turns a double play. That's what he's going to teach him. He's going to teach him to step on first base when he's running out of ball down the line. Or and some of the mistakes, Tyler, go beyond teaching or fundamentals, or it's just brain lock. Wilyer Abreu is a good example. Abreu chasing down fly balls this year.
He'll get it.
Has been pretty good. He's been pretty good. As soon as the ball's on the ground, he has to pick it up and retrieve it. And it's a retrieval, get it back to the infield. All 3 of his errors, I think, are on balls that have been on the ground. All 3. The errors are true. How do you explain Rafael Devers play at third base? He's been a big leaguer for how many years? Rafael Devers is capable of playing better defense than he's played this year. And this gets into something Matt McCarthy said last week, that the Red Sox big-name players or big salaried players have failed them. If you go position by position, which we did today on our website, 985thesportshub.com. 20 games, a look at every spot on the diamond. What are the Red Sox getting from those spots? They are 30th in the majors in offense at third base. 30th. They are 28th in defense, or 27th at third base. Their highest paid player is giving them the least. Shortstop's another bad position. Trevor Story's their second highest paid player. Their third highest paid positional player is Masataka Yoshida, who has the Red Sox ranked 30th in offensive production at DH. Obviously, he doesn't play defense. So their highest paid players are failing them. Fundamentally, they can't get their heads screwed on. How do I blame the manager for that?
I think I look at Alex Cora just from the standpoint, when those errors, is it improving? Is it getting better? I look at Alex Cora and the relationship he has with Rafael Devers. That was supposed to be a major selling point, that he was someone who could get through to Rafael Devers. When you're not seeing players take those steps forward, even if it's the bare minimum. You can't help David Hamilton, who just simply doesn't know how to play baseball. You turn left after you run through first base and you get tagged out because you don't know you can't do that. That's a problem. But I look at someone like Tristan Casas, who's known for having a higher baseball IQ, making moves like he did, trying to go second to third, doing too much, stuff like that. That's where I kind of sit there with Alex Cora sometimes and I say, where has he been able to kind of stop these things or at least limit them? Instead, they pile and they get worse and worse and worse. At the bare minimum, with someone like Alex Cora, who is supposed to be so fundamentally heavy, why hasn't there even been a slight improvement from year to year when you're putting more emphasis on it than ever? There should be at least an ability to stop the bleeding. It feels like when things are getting worse, they just pile and pile to the point where, you have to make a drastic change. And that's where I'd question, Rafael at second base in certain games when you have Hamilton at shortstop. Like, is everything always being attacked? Is that a front office decision? I think it's a fair question. But in those moments where you've already put Rafael at shortstop, what's stopping you kind of right there?
I mean, Tyler, they've even changed members of the coaching staff.
And still, nothing is changing. You're not getting through here. So is that Cora, you keep a guy in Andy Fox who has been here. Is that not chasing outside voices? Is that not an impact? I think it's a blame pie. I'm not throwing it strictly on Cora because a lot of it has to do with the front office and ownership. But when you're talking about where it stops, where blame is going to fall, eventually it's going to fall on the manager if they can't get a different message going amongst that group.
Okay, at some point, to steal an old Bill Parcells line, maybe it's the groceries that aren't that good.
It's part of it.
Maybe it's just about the groceries. So anyway, 617-779-0985. Let me just say this quickly because we're coming up against a break. But Martin in Texas, Charles in Connecticut, Joe in Lincoln, Frank in New Jersey. There's also another caller who's coming through right now. Just sit tight. I promise we'll get to your calls when we come back on the baseball hour. And we'll also touch on something that was positive from this week. I know Tyler has thoughts on that as well. We'll do all that when we come back on the baseball hour.
This is the Baseball Hour with Tony Maz.
Hey, it's Maz from Bigelow Tea, and you know what I like more than anything? Flexibility. I like to
It's just we're not making plays.
Big league shortstop? Or is there some sort of learning that's not being done you know what I mean? Some sort of player development that's not being handled properly or not taking place that would allow him to play better defense? Just your opinion.
So just looking at what the Red Sox front office has believed, and Sox Prospects has been all over this, as they have covered him when he was at shortstop in AAA and told you he wasn't that good. The front office believes his range in their defensive metrics, not the ones we have, in their defensive metrics, they believe he is good at the position, above average, because he's rangy. Now, great. It's awesome if you have some range. I'd argue even that at this point. But what does the range matter if you don't have the arm to play the position? It's awesome if you're deep in the hole and you get to the ball. If you can barely get it on 2 hops to first base, it's useless to everybody. And that's where the big disconnect is. And that's why I sit there and I question why they've been operating that way. And I do kind of look at the overall picture of why Hamilton has still been there. I think it is the front office, but I do wonder in game why there's been moments where you're putting Rafael at second base. Is that Cora just saying, well, hey, that's how the front office feels? Take that. I'll put him at second base and you can watch this whole thing play out. But I look at Cora and why the blame ultimately falls on him is because it didn't start this year. It's been a problem since 2021. And unfortunately, if that's the same characteristic of your team for 3+ years, eventually it's going to land on you, even if it is somewhat unfair.
Yeah, now I'll tell you that it's been the same since 2021 because a lot of the players have sucked since 2021.
Well, hey, you made it to the LCS in 2021. Say what you will, but Hunter Renfroe throwing the ball into the bleachers regularly because he doesn't understand what a cutoff guy is. Outfielders routinely not understanding what cutoff guys were the last couple years. I can't blame that on players. That's simply on coaching. You have to get that into guys because you see with certain guys like Jarren Duran where the improvement is. I just wonder with young ball players, especially in a different era where I think players, no disrespect, but they don't have the feel for the game that previous generations did. Are you able to get through those guys and understand what it means to be a more developmental coach that gets these guys over the hurdle, not the guy who's used to pushing players to win a championship?
Yeah, I don't think Cora is that guy. I think he was brought here to win championships, and now this is where it becomes about ownership and management. What'd you bring him back for? Cora's a bad fit. He's a bad fit for this team. Just quickly on Hamilton, because, Jimmy, do you remember yesterday we were watching the game, and I said to you at one point, I froze the screen, I sat down, I froze the screen, I backed it up, and I showed you a play, and I said what? Do you remember?
You said, watch how he throws.
Hamilton,
watch how he throws.
Okay,
and then you took out your little drawing tool and you drew an object on the screen.
See, now Jimmy's mocking me, Tyler.
Class with Maz, I like it.
Yeah, it is. It's the Magistrator, as we call it. So, no, but this is exactly what I said to Jimmy. And Felger and I talked about this on Felger and Maz. You know the double play where he missed second base?
Yes.
I have my theory as to why. He rushes every exchange at second base. The transition, the pivot at second on a double play when he's coming from shortstop, which, by the way, is easy. Okay, that's easy. When it's harder for the second baseman because he's running towards second and then has to throw back towards first. That's a trickier exchange. Your body's going one way, the throw's got to go the other. The shortstop's all coming in the same direction. It's the easiest double play turn there is. You're coming towards the second baseman, he throws, you drag your foot, you fire, boom, it's over. Everything's going towards first base. Except Hamilton doesn't have the arm. So you know what happens? He rushes it. And he gets his feet wrong, or the throw's a little offline, both of which he's done. 2 of his errors have come on double plays. And yesterday, the play that Jimmy's talking about, that, I sort of rewind, because it was a routine play. And he got the guy out. He got him out. He took the crow hops that you're talking about.
Crazy.
There's this wind up that goes into his throw because he doesn't have the natural arm strength to get it there. You know who he reminds me of? And this is going back a ways. You remember David Eckstein?
Yeah.
Who played for the Angels, was a little guy. He was a Red Sox prospect initially. Eckstein did not have the arm to play shortstop, but he pulled it off because he always got guys by a half a step, and he was flawless with the glove. Okay? So he was able to generally pull it off, but he was not ideally a shortstop. Now, it worked. I think they won a World Series with him.
0-2.
Okay, so
Eckstein got MVP votes a couple seasons.
So which is crazy. But believe me when I tell you, go watch his throws. That's what David Hamilton reminds me of. Same kind of play. Let's take some
And then
calls.
Maz drew circles around his feet and went, boom, right there.
Everyone sees it. And I'll also...
Tyler, it was great analysis.
I can tell.
I wanted to
agree
film
with
it and put it on the website.
I'll also add when he
It's
was...
the kind of stuff they're missing on Nesson now, Tyler.
I agree. You look at second base, though, as well, with Emmanuel Valdez. There was a play where the ball came up to him. Hamilton is rushing to the bag when it's Valdez's ball to go to second and then first. Stops the double play, ends up costing them a run. Hamilton is so worried about getting to the bag as fast as he can because he knows the arm is not good enough.
Exactly.
And that's where you run into these plays. They may not be errors. He has 3 in 10 games. You can count more than 10 on your hands already that are just, hits that fell in or whatever it may be.
That's the source of the problem, if you ask me. Martin's in Texas. Martin, what do you got?
Hey, guys. I don't really think the core is much of the problem at all because, like you just said, you can't teach arm strength into Hamilton's arm, and you can't teach them how to field grounders anymore. If they haven't gotten to that point, at this point, they're never going to. The problem is Masataka Yoshida is making 3 times as much money as the rest of the lineup combined.
That's part of it. Again, Yoshida alone is not taking him down. You can't blame him for any of the errors. And so, look, you tell him he's not producing, I'll give it to you, Martin. But again, he alone is not taking them down. And the other thing is, he's $18 million a year. Okay? He's not $35 million a year. So the contract shouldn't kill you as a big market team. That's number one.
But Tony, when all of your highest priced players are killing you, Devers is hurt, Jansen blows, Yoshida, I think, got benched
2 days in a row,
covering with an injury issue. Those are 3 of your top paid players, and they're not producing at the level that they should be. It's a problem.
Agreed.
I'll also add the roster construction as well, having Yoshida, which, a couple months ago, Brezzo would have told you they were going to rotate. That is the reason Justin Turner isn't here. I tell you, they should have grew up and traded one of the young outfielders and figured out another way around it. They didn't want to. They were too nervous to. But that's another thing that gets into it, where if you have Turner in this lineup who's killing it this year, you probably feel a lot better.
Again, and you'd be a more balanced lineup on top of it because he hits right-handed. Charles in Connecticut. Charles, go ahead.
Hey, guys, the 10-10 record you were talking about, I have one word for it. It's absolutely miraculous. This team is pathetic, and they're 500. Watching David Hamilton play shortstop makes Kiki Hernandez look like Luis Aparicio, for God's sakes. Cass is stealing third. Sasquatch never stole third base. If they had a decent glove at short, that collision between Tyler O'Neill and Devers would have never happened. A shortstop would have grabbed it. Please, I've had enough of Bobby Dahlback. He's not a major leaguer. With men on base, he strikes out every time. And I'm glad the previous caller mentioned Justin Turner. They don't have a veteran in this clubhouse that can walk up to Cassis after he does something dopey and say, you're a damn fool. This team lacks veteran leadership. Good night.
There is a leadership problem. I don't think there's a question about that. I go back and forth on the 10-10 part of it. Is that a good 10-10 or a bad 10-10? The fact of the matter is, if they could just make some basic plays, they'd have a winning record. They might be 12-8, which is 600 baseball. Now, again, the schedule's been soft. Fine. But I wouldn't call the Cleveland series totally soft. Cleveland's pretty good. The Mariners are decent. They played well in that series.
88 wins last year, and you could argue they're a better team roster-wise this year.
Now, Baltimore's a different level. Okay, the Orioles are a World Series contender, so that's a different level. But the other 2 series, both of the Seattle series, they split. And the series here against the Guardians, they lost. But those 2 series, they could have won them both if they could just make some basic plays. And just quickly, Tyler, the errors that they're making, and again, this is another reason I don't go with Corey. You mentioned Hunter Renfroe and cutoff men. There have been a couple of those. Rafaela's thrown a couple of balls in that have been to the wrong place and deflected off of people, or fine.
Casas not getting to where he needs to be on a cutoff and the ball skipping away on him.
Totally right. But the balls to Devers are right at him. The balls on the double plays are easy plays. Story threw away a double play, too, that was an easy play. They've dropped a couple of fly balls in the outfield. In other words, I don't think they're coaching errors. You follow me?
Yeah, I think you can sit there and argue a lot of talent, but then I sit and I watch something like Rafael Devers and Tyler O'Neill, where you have Rafael Devers going back. It's simple as telling someone, hey, you have a gold glover, 2-time gold glover in Tyler O'Neill. get out of the way. Instead, you have everyone coming in, and you have the young guy and Ceddanne Rafaela. That's the only one who's kind of going away from it, who's been in the outfield and played shortstop, so he has a little bit more of a feel. It's those simple little things that have felt like they just happen regularly for years at a time. And when your team identity is constantly that you are stupid, that you get picked off more than any other team in baseball, I sit there. You can only blame that so much on the groceries, but a lot of the times it's young guys, and it's young guys that probably need an arm around them and need that development. Do you want to blame that on Cora? Say it isn't his type or whatever it may be. Unfortunately, that's the job he has right now, and you're under contract. I want to see some of those mental errors from the young ball players especially start to go away, because they get evaluators who believe in them, in Casas, in Wilyer Abreu, that hype these guys up and tell you what they're worth. They should clean that up. I want to see these young players take those steps forward, because, you start to get a year or two into some of these guys, and it's like, how much have they really matured as baseball players? That's where you start to question things.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to the headlines here. Jimmy, who's doing headlines? The Majori?
Kevin Majori.
Okay, Majori's going to do headlines. He'll get you caught up.
I was confused for a second also. I wasn't sure if we were handing the mic to the Milla Missile in there.
Well, exactly. Do you ever do headlines, Tyler, on the midday show?
No, not then, but I've done a baseball hour hosting for you a few times.
Okay, so Tyler can do headlines, but Majori's going to do them tonight. Usually it's McCarthy when he's here. Now you can understand why I get it wrong, those of you who listen to the show. See, it's not entirely my fault. They're always changing the background on me, so to speak. So, Majori's got your headlines. Those of you on the line, sit tight when we come back. Tyler's got thoughts on Tanner Houck, and I do want to delve a little bit more into this Alex Cora thing, because I think it's an important part of the story. We'll do that when we come back on the base.
Tanner Houck with the best night of his major league career. Absolutely sensational.
That was the highlight of the week. And Tanner Houck, by the way, I would say has been one of the brightest spots of the season. Now, he had a bad game against the Angels last weekend, but overall, Houck's been pretty good.
Which the defense let him down a lot in that game as well.
Yeah, I thought he had nothing that night, though. He got hit hard. And I'm not telling you wrong about the defense. They did let him down, but I would also say that his stuff is, his movement is so good. The big thing that sticks out, and it's obvious, he's thrown a lot of strikes. 69 strikes the other night was a career high. And earlier this season, he tied a career high, was the second highest, I think, 63 strikes.
For the season, last year he was at 63% strikes. This year he's up to 69% on the season overall.
He's walked 2 guys. He's got 2 walks.
Best in all of Major League Baseball right now.
Okay, 0.7 walks per nine. It's ridiculous. I mean, his movement, he'll get people out doing that. What do you got on Houck?
Yeah, so I think with Tanner Houck, the conversation since really he got drafted was, can this guy ever develop a third pitch and be a starter? Everyone knew that the sinker and slider were as nasty as you could possibly get, but it doesn't matter. If you don't have 3 pitches, more often than not, you're not going to make it in the big leagues, especially when that third pitch needs to be something to get lefties out. So on this start on Wednesday night, he threw that splitter 34% of the time. Keep in mind, last year he threw it 11% of the time. So at 34% on Wednesday night, he used that as his second pitch. Now, you look at what the splitter was a year ago, it's a much different pitch now. He's added 3.3 inches of vertical drop onto it. So now we're talking about a splitter that falls off the table. This is the kind of ball that just falls out, and it allows him to get these lefties out and go through a lineup multiple times, which he wasn't able to use before. And I think that's the biggest game changer. And for the year right now, it's up to 18.4%. So obviously a big adjustment in that one start. But you look at last year, opponents hit 310 off the splitter. This year it's 192. So you have a combination of him using it more, of batters apparently struggling against it and not being able to do much with it, right? And then you add in, now that he's throwing more strikes, he's eliminated the four-seamer, which got whacked last year. Andrew Bailey has kind of reshaped him into a different pitcher once again. A guy that now has a third pitch that actually functions. And surprise, surprise, when he leans on it more than he ever has in any start before, it leads to him going 9 innings and working through a lineup multiple times and breezing through. You have 9 Ks and you only threw 94 pitches. You don't throw more than 13 pitches in a single inning. If I ever told you Tanner Houck would do that, you'd pass out before this year. So I think that's where you see the difference. And I think even the mechanics, he looks so much smoother out there. And you may say, well, he had back surgery a year ago. That's part of it. Maybe. But he looks like a different guy. He looks confident. He looks smooth. And the Red Sox told him a year ago. Jen McCaffrey had this piece, and I thought it was fascinating to read. When they kicked Pivetta out of the rotation last year, they went to Houck and told him, we're going to take you out. Houck said no. He said, I want to be in there. They said, all right, you need to develop the splitter and you need to throw more strikes. Well, it's taken some time. He fractured his face. He had some bad luck. He's made those changes, and now we're seeing the guy that they've been dreaming on, and I wouldn't be surprised considering they've already had extension talks with him in the past. If he keeps this up into the middle of the year, don't be surprised if that's the next one you hear about.
Okay, the look, and all that stuff to me is dead on. That's exactly what the difference is. And now the delivery is no small thing either, because that's why he's in the strike zone. The movement on his pitches is so good, he just has to get them close. And he's definitely tightened up that delivery. There's no question about it in my mind. I told you this off the air. I'm going to say it again because I keep saying it. I want someone to ask the question down there. Eventually, I'm going to get on and ask it myself. I don't think his split's a split. I don't think it is anymore, at least part of the time. I think it's a changeup again. And there was one that I froze on it was against Mike Trout while they were playing the Angels. I froze the screen. I went back and had to look at it 3 or 4 different times. And he had his thumb and index finger in a circle. Okay, so to me, that was a circle change. I think and again, this is a minor thing, Tyler. The average fan doesn't give a rat's ass about this, but I don't think it's a split. I think it's a change.
Maz, you're making me nerd out here. So I go to his Sox prospects page, which has his arsenal from when he was coming up through the system. You know, the original changeup he scrapped, he no longer throws as we talk about now, which you're questioning, right? He threw it 86 to 88 back then. And when he scratched it for the splitter, the pitch was very inconsistent, the changeup itself, but he tinkered with the grip once he got into pro ball and switched from a circle grip in 2019. So the circle grip has been something he messed with before. Could that be something that Andrew Bailey has implemented? I don't know. Someone has to ask the question, but that was a part of him at one point in time. And it's a different pitch this year. When your ball starts dropping 3.3 more inches, it's different than what you were throwing
previously. Do me a favor, look up the velocity on his split last year. Okay, in the interim, we'll take a couple of phone calls. Joe and Lincoln. Joe, what do you got?
Hey, so first of all, I think you guys confirmed this, but Hamilton was the same guy that missed second base on the fielding, and also he missed first base running?
That's correct.
And the bases are bigger this year, right?
Correct.
Holy, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
No, Joe, I haven't seen it either. It's an important point about the bases too. Now, look, I can't blame the one at first base on his, the lack of a throwing arm, because he's obviously running down the baseline trying to beat out a hit. But there is something there about, can you get your feet right?
And the other thing I was going to say about the fielding. Do you remember the Baltimore Orioles, at least some years ago, maybe they're still doing it, were tremendous in minor league coaching. Everybody could bunt. Everybody didn't make stupid base running mistakes. Why don't the Red Sox do that at the minor leagues, or are they trying? What's the story?
Well, so, Joe, my guess is they are trying. And by the way, I would put, if you were asking me to give you the model organization for doing that kind of stuff, was Minnesota. They were great at it. To the point where, the dirt balls, for lack of a better, and I mean the balls that are in the dirt, okay, when a pitcher throws a ball in the dirt, Minnesota was the best in baseball. If the ball hit the dirt, the guy went. Every time. And all their guys could run a little bit. They were a good base running organization. Now, look, they had to focus on some of these details because they didn't have the money to go out and get players. And if the Orioles, or years and years ago, the Orioles were a factory. Okay, then they went through a lull there, and now it looks like their guys can play again. They get some high picks, which always helps. They can hit. So, but, the Red Sox have always been good at developing hitters.
Position player prospects. We see it today.
Correct.
Those are the guys that come through here. I will say, on that Hamilton play at first base, no one asked this question, and I've talked to Jared about it, Carabas, who's on the show on Wednesdays or at some point during the week for the baseball hour. But David Hamilton, he did touch the bag at first base. His front foot clipped it. But when he got to, he ran through the bag, he turned left and then was tagged and then was ruled out. No one asked the question, but if you watch the replay, it looks like he was tagged out because he turned left towards second base.
He didn't. It's because he missed first.
So was it just an incorrect ruling? Because if you look at the replay, he did touch first.
So he didn't really. I had this argument with Jimmy the other day, and it drives me bananas because you have to make a deliberate motion to go to second base.
So like
in
a
other
full
words,
action.
Right. It's not just, if you get to the end of the baseline and then turn around, but you make the turn counterclockwise instead of clockwise. Okay? You follow me?
100%.
Clockwise is to your right, counterclockwise is to your left. You're not automatically out for going counterclockwise. You have to make a motion towards second base that indicates you were preparing to run in that direction. I don't think Hamilton did that. Now, again, go back and look. Jimmy does. I don't. Okay? I think he just kind of made a normal turn to go back to first. So, now we can debate that one. I say yes, you say no, whatever. We'll never come to an agreement on that. If you watch the guys who've been called out on that play historically, it's because they make a sharp move like they're going to go to second base, and then they stop and decide, no, I'm going to stay. Once they make that sharp move, that counts as you were thinking about going. Now, you made an attempt to start going, then you caught yourself. You got to get back to the bag. I don't think Hamilton did that.
And it is subjective to the umpire. So the other thing I'll add, there was someone on his right side at that moment. So if he turned around right, it was going to be a full-blown collision. So that is up to the ump. But Jay Stu, go ahead.
I would say this, though, is that the umpires have been very deliberate with the rule book. So they're kind of ticky-tack. So any turn left instead of turn right could have been perceived by the rule book as an attempt to go to second base.
Yeah, I'm just telling you that it's not about turning left. It's about making a gesture that indicates you're ready to run to second. And I'd have to look up the actual rule, Jimmy, to find out.
I would be interested to know if anybody asked what the official ruling was for why Hamilton was out.
Well, we all know the answer to that.
Oh, no, because it's not a soundbite. It's a detail question.
Because no one asks questions about anything anymore.
Because his foot hit the bag. You watch that replay, there's no denying it. He clipped it just like he barely clipped second base a week ago.
Frank in New Jersey. Frank, what do you got?
Ticky-tack umps.
Yeah, guys, I want to talk about Andrew Bailey's pitching philosophy. I want to keep an open mind on it, and I think there's certainly been some good things. The starting pitch has been great so far. So I like that they're going away from just focusing on velocity. They're focused on movement, spinning the ball. But why can't they do both creating spin, attacking the strike zone in that fashion, but also the traditional pitching of using your four-seamer, locating your fastball? I just don't see this working long term because eventually teams are going to catch up because you're spinning the ball, attacking the zone.
Yeah.
Why not do that and incorporate the four-seamer, locating your fastball, and just throw in a few more fastballs than they do? I think that's more of a formula for success long term.
Frank, I agree. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, so I think you're seeing it depends on the pitcher who's going to lean into it. If you have a crappy four-seamer like Brian Bayo or Tanner Houck, yeah, Andrew Bailey's going to tell you, stop throwing it. But there's been times this year, Nick Pivetta, Cutter Crawford had games where their four-seamer was their primary pitch. Just like when you see with Garrett Whitlock, he's not consistently throwing the sweeper as his number one pitch. He's throwing the changeup. Why is he throwing the changeup? Because that's the best pitch Garrett Whitlock has in his arsenal. That's the pitch that he gets the most swings and misses with. So maybe you may question, well, hey, why don't they pitch to contact more or something like that? All right, that's a fair question. You can kind of lay that one out. But I think he's just leaning into what his pitcher's strengths are. I think people who are getting a little too caught up in it, hey, they just throw breaking balls over and over. No, and you've seen them change the arsenal from time to time. We've seen Whitlock lean into the sweeper at certain points. Cutter Crawford lean into the sweeper, but I've also watched him lean into the four-seamer. It's based on who they're facing that day and also what's really working for the pitcher.
Yeah, I need to see more fastballs because, again, you got to set up the breaking stuff a little too. And, again, you could throw a fastball effectively and throw it off the plate, throw it on the corners, and throw it to certain parts of the strike zone. The point is, if you can spot your fastball, it's not going to get pounded. So I just think they've gone a little too far in some cases. That's all. And sadly, there was a good thing I read online the other day about Greg Maddux kind of lamenting the fact that what they're teaching these kids in the minor leagues. I'll just put it to you this way. If Greg Maddux were in the minor leagues right now, nobody would want him.
Oh, no, he'd be sitting out there. Hey, you're throwing 88, 89. Good luck.
Which is asinine. He's one of the great pitchers of all. He won 355 games, for God's sake. Jim in Florida. Jim, what do you got?
So I think this is a 70-win team. That said, it wouldn't surprise me because there are a lot of bad teams, and the Red Sox do have some good talent. And I do think Casas and Devers, they're going to hit. But the thing is, with the defensive...
Jim, I'm going to let you go there just because we get some other people that want to get on, too. I'll say this. They, I don't want to say they have enough talent to win, as in they're going to win the championship. They have enough talent to compete, even with Trevor Story out. If they can clean up the defense and keep the pitching healthy, and those are two big ifs. I didn't say they had the health to win or the depth. I said the talent. Okay, I'm talking about if they can find someone who can catch the effing ball at shortstop and third base and keep Devers healthy, they can hang around 80 wins. They can hang around there. There's enough. Between Houck, Whitlock, Crawford, Pivetta, there's enough there based on what we've seen for them. I said this at the beginning of the year, by the way. Those guys have ceiling. There's ability there. They just have to get it out of them. We'll wrap it up when we come back.